Team USA got the win versus Serbia, but all the talk is who did and did not play. Why did Jayson Tatum get DNP CD'd? Why didn't Joel Embiid get DNP CD'd? The politics and complications of Team USA basketball. Plus, are we going to see a Kevin Durant renaissance at the end of his career? All that and more on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On NBA, your daily source for all things NBA from the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us your first listen. We do appreciate you being an everydayer, hanging out with us Monday through Friday with all of our great hosts. You can catch John Corrales and Jake Madison tomorrow on Wednesdays. You can catch Pat the Designer and Nick Angstadt on Thursdays. And Fridays, you can catch Wes Goldberg and Adam Mares. Make sure to tune in all throughout the week for coverage of all things NBA, as well as all things Team USA, which we'll talk about a lot on this show, which is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network and co-host of Locked On Nuggets. I'm joined by David Ramil. He's co-host of Locked On Heat. On today's show, I've got some thoughts on Kevin Durant, who I think is having a positive turn in terms of his public persona, and I'm a little bit hopeful that we might be seeing a little bit of a Durant-essence with how Kevin Durant is perceived publicly at the end of his career. David, I think, is skeptical, so we'll have a one-on-one on that later. Jaylen Brown's got some comments about his exclusion from Team USA and is airing some dirty laundry. Is there lies about Jaylen Brown, or is it more, accurate? We'll talk about that, but we start, David, with today. In the aftermath of Team USA's win over Serbia, 26-point win, should all be good vibes, but of course, this is 2024, and, well, everyone's got to defend their guy. So there's a lot going on the internet, and it circles around two players, Joel Embiid and Jayson Tatum. We'll start with Tatum because I think it's the most interesting topic. Tatum did not play in Team USA's win over Team Serbia in their Olympic opening game on Sunday, a 110-84 victory. Everybody but Jayson Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton played. Tatum was not sick, nor was he injured. He was good to go, and Steve Kerr did confirm after the game that he, in fact, was just told before the game not going to play in this one. He will play reportedly, or not reportedly, according to Kerr, in Wednesday's game versus South Sudan. So he will obviously get his opportunity. Kerr cited the fact that it's hard to get time for 10 players in a 40-minute game. Celtics fans, I don't know if you know this, David, but they're pretty passionate about their guys. They like to argue. And in the aftermath of Tatum not winning Finals MVP after a pretty pedestrian Finals performance, despite the fact that he once again contributed to, a championship, there is a strong kind of conversation going on about Tatum, and Tatum's taken the brunt of a lot of jokes here. I have my own thoughts on it that I'd love to get into, but I want to get your thoughts first. What's kind of your takeaway from the Jayson Tatum situation, the backlash to the backlash, all of this? What does it say that Jayson Tatum received a did not play coach's decision versus Team Serbia for Team USA?
At first there were rumblings that, he might have been sick. And that's what I kind of approached at first was, he wasn't feeling well. There were changes apparently to his pregame routine, or at least that's what some people have said, that he kind of just went directly to the bench and didn't warm up to the same degree that he normally does. And so my thought process was, oh, okay, he probably won't play. Then to see the backlash right away that he didn't play, and Kerr's comments following that it was just up to him and he didn't play him because he chose not to, that was kind of odd because it's not an all-star game. This isn't Little League, and there's no requirement for everybody to play. And so what I was watching Team USA, that was a tightly contested game for most of it, and eventually Team USA, by virtue of their talent, and I think an approach that Kerr, utilized that a lot of people don't appreciate, which is I think he tried to play a taller lineup, a taller combination of players than usual. It's not to say that Tatum's a small player, but I think, Curry, given his three-point shooting, I think is, obviously a player that you need to have out there. But you had Bam, you had AD, you had Embiid, and we'll talk about that soon enough. But I think the idea was to kind of contest Serbia's height advantage across the board with some of their own bigger lineups, including, again, Kevin Durant, who was just being welcomed back too. So I think that's another part of it is a lot of people are kind of overlooking is KD played. KD at 7 feet tall, obviously a bigger guy, but a guy who has multiple skills as a scorer, defender, etc. Tatum was just kind of left out. It was just a numbers crunch to me, and I don't see anything wrong in it necessarily. Again, I understand the perspective from Celtics fans, like, well, why didn't he play? There's got to be something to do. I don't think there's any great conspiracy, although Jaylen Brown, who knows what he's going to say about that. But as far as, Kerr not playing, I didn't think there was anything to it. So I'm curious what your take is, because I just think, he didn't play because it made a lot of sense not to play him, and it's not that big a deal because they wound up winning by 26 points. Oh, you're on mute, I think, but that's okay.
There's a lot of things to break down here, and I think you make a good point about the matchup versus Serbia. I think it's a relevant point. A lot of what this comes down to is Celtics fans will understandably say that Team USA has always been about who the best players are, and Tatum is worthy of being on that list of the best players. And that's hard to argue with, okay? He has led his team to so many conference finals. He is, regardless of whether he won finals MVP or not, he was the best player on a championship team, right? He is a multiple-time All-Star. He's a 3-time All-NBA selection. All of these types of things. And by the way, he does have a gold medal as well. Like he has paid his dues with Team USA, right? I think one of the problems is in trying to create the best team out of these 5. And that's where this kind of does get kind of complicated. Like if LeBron James wasn't on the team, then I think Jayson Tatum would play a bigger role. I think if Kevin Durant wasn't on the team, obviously, because when Durant was out, Tatum would play a bigger role. But when you have Durant to handle the individual ISO scoring and spot up shooting, and you have LeBron as the primary wing engine, it becomes a question of what does Tatum do that's better than the other guys in supporting roles? Okay. And a big good one in this is, well, why is Devin Booker playing? Okay. Devin Booker's a better shooter. And Celtics fans have said, well, actually, Jayson Tatum had a better catch and shoot percentage than Devin Booker last year. Okay. We can all be reasonable and accept that Devin Booker is probably a better shooter than Jayson Tatum. Tatum in particular actually has had a pretty rough stretch of shooting lately. Like it's just been weird, but that's like been part of the problem, whether he's got a wrist injury or whatever else is going on. It's been kind of a struggle. Even if if that wasn't a thing, right? Because there's nothing officially listed. Booker is like just he's a better shooter. That's okay. Like we could just say that, right? If it goes into like, well, setting an offense and playmaking, you're not better than LeBron, and you're honestly not better than Durant. The one that's interesting though, David, to me is like Anthony Edwards, and this gets into the size component, which is I think Tatum is better than Anthony Edwards, but you can't play probably LeBron, KD, and Tatum. Who's the 2 guard in that spot, right? Yeah. LeBron at 40 going to play 2 guard? Is Tatum going to play 2 guard? It doesn't like he's definitely, I'm not saying that they're bound by positionality, but if you're trying to guard smaller guys, chasing them off of screens, you need guard defenders. And Anthony Edwards is more of a guard defender. Like I think Jayson Tatum, I said this morning, I think Jayson Tatum's the 3rd best defender on Team USA overall. I think it's Anthony Davis. No, I think it's Bam Adebayo. I think it's Bam Adebayo and then Anthony Davis and then Jayson Tatum. But there's not a defensive weak link. It's not like they're taking a defender off the board, right? It's not like if you're like, well, we need, sure, Jayson Tatum's not playing. And the problem is that this non-defender is playing. That's not the case. All of these guys can defend. It's the reason why Tyrese Halliburton is not playing, is he is a defensive liability. He's the only member of Team USA who's quite honestly a defensive liability. So I think that there are real questions here. And I think it's really tough to kind of figure out like what the slice is in terms of how to figure this out. I want to keep this discussion going because I want to get into Embiid. Plus, we'll talk about what Jaylen Brown has comments about in regards to Team USA, including, some pretty spicy ones about Grant Hill. We'll talk about that, all that and more up next here on Locked On NBA. I just got back from the Outer Banks, North Carolina. On my way back, I decided to stop through Raleigh with the family, and we checked out a Durham Bulls game because I love Bull Durham, the movie, very much. And so I love going to Durham Bulls games. Minor league, absolutely phenomenal. Guess where I got tickets? Game Time. Absolute best way to buy tickets. I was able to get the seats I wanted at the price I wanted. I saw all-in prices. I was able to get the view that I wanted of the field, which for me was most important because I wanted my daughter to be able to see the bat dog that comes out and gets the bats. That's absolutely amazing. It's the best dog in the world. Bat dog. Shout out to Bat Dog. I was able to get great seats for a discount price, and that meant I could go crazy on things. I could spend more money on things like souvenirs and snacks for the kids. It was absolutely tremendous. I had a great time. Durham Bulls won 3-0. Good for them. I got a great view of my seats and all that and more. And you can do that with any baseball game with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, just create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We'll be right back on Locked On NBA. Second segment here on Locked On NBA. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us on a Tuesday. If you're listening to this, we're doing this live on a Monday here on youtube.com/LockedOnNBA. Great way to support the show. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us in the comments. John McGregor suggests Tatum over Drew. And then Nate Dunn says Drew brings much needed defense, all around game, fits better for world competition. This is another part of it is like, this is a key issue is when you get on Team USA, you have a lot of guys that are used to the ball being in their hands, and that's how their games are molded. Is they're used to having the ball and everything working around them. And it's kind of difficult. Drew Holiday, Derek White, these guys are thriving because they don't need the ball and they can play around those guys. And honestly, it is a real credit to Kevin Durant, who we'll talk about later, that he is like totally willing to basically come in and be Olympic Melo only like 3 times. Like, that first half performance was absolutely insane from Kevin Durant, and his willingness to go ahead and fit that role is really notable. Tatum's not really built that way. So it is a little bit different. He's more of an on-ball creator. And that's, I think, part of the element there. So the other big question here, and it's not an answer to the Tatum question of like, who should, he play over, but it is an interesting one, is Joel Embiid, who, look, there's a lot of games where Joel Embiid has gotten the better individually of Nikola Jokic. It's happened pretty commonly that he's put up some big numbers on Nikola Jokic. Jokic took him to school yesterday. Jokic was a plus-minus of 0 in a 26-point loss, which, if you're not great at math, tells you that the Serbians lost by 26 points when Jokic was not on the floor in this one. Versus with Embiid, he finishes as the only Team USA player in the minus. They were outscored by 8 points with Embiid. He played 11 minutes and 21 seconds, did start both halves, 2 of 5 from the field. I'm not surprised that this is like an issue where Team USA has to play with as a team. And this honestly does. It goes back to Dream Team. When you have all these guys at this level, you need players that are willing and able to play styles that make everyone better. LeBron is totally comfortable playing point forward and being a guy who sets everyone up and does all of the other stuff. That's how he prefers to play. He's way more Magic than Jordan. Steph Curry, totally willing to come off of screens and play off ball. That's how he plays. Kevin Durant, completely willing to adapt and play a little bit more off ball and be a catch and shoot sniper. That's where he is comfortable. You go on down the line and everybody is willing to make those sacrifices. And I'll note, I think Jayson Tatum is too. I think Jayson Tatum is willing to make those sacrifices. It's a question of how ably is he able to. I don't think Embiid doesn't want to, but it is a pretty bad look that Embiid basically held national free agency for his services, where he was debating between Cameroon and France and America and going through all these options, and eventually came to the conclusion, he'd been nationalized. He has family here. He wanted to play for Team USA. He winds up joining, obviously, the most stacked team. And now it appears very much that not only do they not need him, they kind of need him not to play, because they have been great when he is not on the floor. And I, as the internet's resident Anthony Davis is overrated guy, will tell you, AD plays phenomenal with this unit. I love the AD Bam pairing with the bench. It is just hard, David, to see kind of where Joel Embiid fits with this team. And it is jarring to see a Team USA member in a 26-point win be a -8.
He just says he cannot play this style of basketball. We talked about this last week when you weren't available, and it was a continuing to struggle, and it's hard to see him get piled on right now because like it seems like the whole world is doing so, between France and the host country booing him, Serbian fans booing him, American fans, at least on social media, kind of wondering why he's even playing out there when he seems like so obviously happy about the experience. And I have been critical of his style of play because I personally just am not a fan, but I also love the fact that he wants to play for this country, that it means something to him that he chose this country out of all the other countries which he could have played for, and that he seems so genuine in wanting to represent this country, and he's kind of being pilloried for it. So it's just a tough spot right now. He doesn't seem like he's 100% healthy, but even if he were, it's just the style of play. Unless you're Nikola Jokic, you can't go inside out because he's just not a good enough passer. He slows the offense down. You can't force feed him the ball and watch him go to work because other teams can defend him with a level of physicality that he does not face regularly in the NBA. And he's not going to just be able to bait referees for a foul call the way he does at the NBA level. So it just doesn't work. Defensively, then, he's slow, he's sluggish, he can't switch. He's not Bam, he's not AD. It just clogs the whole thing up, and it's easy for other opponents to kind of blow right past him or to set him up easily, draw a foul because he's just big and slow and cumbersome at this point. So it's just a really uncomfortable experience watching him because he's just not fit for this stage at this style of play. It's not to say he's not a great player. I think we all know that, but it doesn't work. I don't. Maybe the question is Steve Kerr doing something? Is there a purpose to him saying we're better with Embiid starting? Does he genuinely believe that? Is it about managing egos at this point? I'm not sure where the edict has come from, whether it's Kerr or Grant Hill or somebody else that says, you know what, he chose us. We've got to be able to at least kind of set him up for success rather than expose him as a failure. But I don't know why he's getting the playing time that he is. You have any theories as to why he's playing over AD or Bam at this point?
So I just think it's politics, man. I just think it's entirely politics. I think
the politics of what, like that he chose USA over France and Cameroon,
and promises were made, and you don't want to be an organization that promises one thing and goes back on it. Now, I would kind of challenge the assertion of like, hey, so you got a lot of guys to volunteer their time for you in a year where most people didn't in FIBA, and they lost and got clowned, and then basically are treated like a mistake that this team has to make up for, which I think is pretty crappy for the 2022 FIBA team when nobody wants to play in these games. It's pretty frustrating to me that's like those guys just get slid completely under the rug, or actually under the bus is more accurate. But I do think the politics of the biggest thing here is that Embiid was given a promise. Embiid's representation was given a promise. And so he committed his time. And so he has to, and honestly, it is a credit to Jayson Tatum that Kerr felt that he could make this move and tell Tatum and Tatum would do it. And, even I'm sure Tatum's not happy about it. Tatum's got a phone. Tatum sees what they're saying. But to me, it's like a credit that you can trust Tatum not to completely disengage. You're not going to lose Jayson Tatum. You might just lose Joel Embiid. And there will be a game where they play, I don't know. I'm not well versed enough. They will play a team in these Olympics in group play where they are so overwhelmingly dominant that it doesn't matter. And then B will put up some numbers and make himself look better. And then we will see a lot of Sixers fans say, see, and it's like, you're somehow playing a worse team than the Wizards, which I didn't think was possible, but come on. And that's a lot of this. I wind up coming out of this I think basketball, the way that I've kind of come to understand basketball is that it is so stylistically different from environment to environment. That college is different from G League, and G League is different from NBA, and NBA is different from international, and international is different from Olympics. I just think that they're all different environments. And I think some players will be awesome and elite in all of them. And I think the other 4 Team USA starters are that level of player. I think Nikola Jokic is like that. I think you can drop Nikola Jokic into any environment on the planet, and he's going to be great at basketball. I think the same thing about Kevin Durant, about LeBron James, about Steph Curry. I think the same thing about Giannis Antetokounmpo, honestly. I think the same thing about a lot of players. What bothers me, though, is that Joel Embiid basically has been dropped in an environment where baiting fouls is no longer an easy path here and looks like this. Now, Embiid would have won MVP for a second time last season, and the biggest reason was not his foul drawing, but his absolutely unconscionably awesome mid-range jumper. He has become the best mid-range jumper out of maybe Durant, and I don't even know who else, like DeRozan. Like that's like the list of mid-range scorers. And then it's the Embiid. That mid-range pick and pop jumper is killer, but that's also built out of a mechanism in pick and pop play where it's dependent on, we're just going to run 1-5 over and over and over and over and just keep feeding the big fella. And Team USA is not going to do that because they have LeBron James and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. Like that's not maximizing. It is not in Team USA's best interest to play around Joel Embiid. And we're seeing kind of what happens. Whereas like Team Serbia is built around the play of Nikola Jokic, but it's built around the play of Nikola Jokic playing around everyone else. And that difference, I think, is really stark and noticeable. And honestly, it's more just a matter of, I think that the NBA does a disservice with how it officiates things, that Joel Embiid looks this out of place. Yeah. Not that Embiid shouldn't be considered great or be able to be great. Embiid should have been, his career should have arced to a point where he is good enough, not good enough, where his game translates well. That's a better way to put it. His game translates well enough to where anywhere in the world you can put Embiid because he is that skilled and he is that awesome. But the fact that the NBA has basically geared these guys to foul bait this constantly is a little alarming. And we're not seeing it with another guy that everyone criticizes that about, which is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai's still awesome, still playing great for Team Canada. So I think that's like a pretty significant question. Jaylen Brown, we stick on the Celtics, had some comments this week about Grant Hill. He takes to Twitter and he outright accuses Grant Hill of keeping him off based off of the fact that Grant Hill thinks that he is, quote, a conspiracy theorist. Quote, Grant Hill calling me a conspiracy theorist is disappointing. I've been a VP of the NBPA since I was 21 years old. I have a great understanding. That's what Brown said. This was after Grant Hill spoke on the Dan Patrick show. He said, I spoke to Brown's agent. I don't know if that was before or after things went out on Twitter, but yeah, I think that this idea that there's a conspiracy theory. I always love a good conspiracy theory, but it was really truly a basketball decision, and these are tough decisions. But having gone through this with FIBA competition, you want to find the right balance and the right pieces on the court that we needed. That was Grant Hill. What was your take when Jaylen Brown put this on Twitter?
I mean, everything. Like, even from the emoji he posted right after Derek White, like his own teammate, like that's just crappy, bad behavior. I don't care how badly you want it or anything like that. I mean, if you can't see why Derek White would be a good fit, specifically for all the things that you said, and that are like basketball, Team USA basketball at this point in time, and FIBA Olympic competition is all about the right blend of players, not just throwing talent out there and seeing what sticks. I don't think anybody's denying Brown's talent. And I don't even know that Brown necessarily would be a bad fit, but he's not going to grumble. He's not going to demand. He's not going to hold the ball. He's not going to try and drive left and force a turnover, something he does at the NBA level. And then as a result, he would slow things down. He's not the right fit for this team. He might be at some point, to what you said earlier about why Tatum isn't playing. Like when Durant's not available and when LeBron's not available, you can bring a guy like Jaylen Brown in. And I think a lot of people are saying, oh, you're risking alienating these young American players. It's like, well, there's only so many spots to go around. And I think the guys that have been there before, like LeBron, like Durant, and like Curry, even though this is his first Olympic appearance, he's been part of Team USA before. Like, I think that matters. Like, you have to be able to honor those things. Tatum, he's being welcomed back because he's a good player, because he's part of Team USA, and that's fine. Like, I don't know. I mean, if you had to choose somebody that like hasn't been part of Team USA before, and Jaylen Brown or Derek White, and plug him in immediately and know that he's not going to create a problem. You don't have to force him the ball. He's not going to complain if he doesn't get playing time, etc. Like, I think Derek White's an obvious choice, and that's fine. Like, it should be fine. the part of the problem also with Jaylen Brown is that I think he studied at the altar of Kyrie Irving for their season together in Boston. And I think whenever you have to say that you're the smartest, he likes thinking he's the smartest guy in the room. And whenever you have to tell everybody that you have a great understanding and that you're the smartest guy in the room, there's a pretty good chance you're not the damn smartest guy in the room. Because I've been around smart people. They never have to remind anybody about how smart they are. So that's a personal problem. I like Jaylen. I've talked to him before. I'll talk to him again. It's fine. But I just think that, too much fifth eye BS for my sake. I just don't like it. I think you can just kind of say, you know what? I didn't get picked. Dang, that sucks. Tell your circle of friends. Be upset about it. But to kind of bring out these things, it does make it seem like you think there's a conspiracy theory about it. And that's the part of the problem. So I think Hill was kind of joking about it on the Dan Patrick show, but I think he was certainly in his right to do so. I don't know. That's pretty much where it stands. It's I don't think they've alienated him completely. I understand you're going to have to massage these egos, but hopefully they can repair that relationship and welcome him back at some point when he's actually needed, and he's going to be more willing to accept the role they have for him.
Yeah, the conspiracy theory thing, I think, probably hits Brown pretty close to home because he was one who really, really, really defended Kanye during the school disaster. And obviously, like, the public view of Kanye West has turned pretty dramatically since then towards the negative for a number of reasons, and reasons that, by the way, are pretty salient at this particular political moment in time. So, like, if you want to say, like, when Grant Hill says it was a totally basketball question issue, I can buy it because I do think that they had so many guys sign up that they were very interested in building the best. Like, they didn't have to take the best players because they had enough of the best players and they could pick amongst the other best players who fit best. So I could buy that. But do I also think that Brown's history of commentary since his friendship with Kyrie Irving blossomed and various views that they've shared played a role in being a little bit concerned about putting them on an international stage? Yeah, I'm not. This is a basketball show. I'm not going to comment on whether those views or whatever. I'm just going to be real about the fact that, yeah, politics have always been kind of a part of especially international play. It's always been a part of it. And I would not be surprised if that was the case here. Up next, Kevin Durant, I think, is actually having a little bit of a moment. I think he's having a little bit of a turn. And I want to talk about that and what it means for the rest of his NBA career. We'll do that next here on Locked On NBA. Back here on Locked On NBA. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us here on a Tuesday. Make sure to check out the show all the rest of the week with all of our great hosts. Okay. So, David, I have really enjoyed this Kevin Durant stretch. He signs up to return to Team USA. On the basketball side, he doesn't play because he's got an injury. Doesn't play. Everybody's like, uh-oh, what's going on? Comes back, plays in Sunday's game, goes 8 of 8 to open, and has an absolutely just outrageous game for Team USA, going 8 of 9 from the field, 5 of 5 from three-point range, 23 points, and a plus 20. Just one turnover. Terrific game from Kevin Durant. Fit right in. Had this moment. He was asked about this is actually a very big deal to me. There was back in 2000, I want to say 11, 12, 13, in that range. People had started calling him like the Slim Reaper, which is a great nickname. It's an elite nickname. And KD had said, don't like it. I don't like it. I don't want to be that. I want to be called the Servant. And everybody was like, that is not a good nickname, KD. No. And he said that he recently said in a social media posting, he was like, I feel like I hadn't earned it when they gave me that nickname. Now I feel like I've earned it. I've earned my place. There's that. A photo is posted of Anthony Edwards dunking all over him, and he emulates CJ McCollum and just posts on Twitter, I'm trying, Jennifer. He has been phenomenal in Team USA. He has been extremely likable. He hasn't made any, there's been no fuss. There's been no drama. He shut down the comments about wanting out of the Suns at Christmas when those reports came up. And since then, despite their first round sweep, there's not been a single Kevin Durant wants out post. I will say there's an opportunity here, I think, for Kevin Durant in the final stage of his career to return to. He was once one of the most lovable, high Q rating. He was like the guy when everybody hated LeBron. It was like, what? Look at Durant. Look how humble and cool Durant is. Be more like that, LeBron, right? And so I think there's an opportunity for him to return in his late stages, because we see this all the time with guys at the end of their careers that were criticized, that you grow to love them at the end. And there's just any number of guys that we can kind of name of that. And Durant's got a number of years left in his career, which is incredible after he suffered an Achilles injury as late as he did. But I think there's a real opportunity here for Durant to end on a very, very high note after everyone has criticized the Golden State decision and the Nets decision and the Suns and the Nets exit decision, all of these things. I think there's a real possibility here for things to end well in terms of how the basketball public accepts, embraces, and lifts up Kevin Durant.
Absolutely not. No chance.
No chance.
It's once every 4 years. Carmelo Anthony was as great and as humble and as productive a player for Team USA as you can imagine. And everybody was telling him, everybody was saying he was washed, he's arrogant. They made fun of him when he refused to come off the bench at Oklahoma City. Like, he bounced from team to team towards the end of his career. Like, it's not enough. I wish it were. I think it adds a nice, kind of decoration around the edges when you kind of view the overall framed art of one's individual career, especially one as great as KD. But I don't think it's enough to change the centerpiece of the picture, which is how people see him after he left Oklahoma City for Golden State. So I think, we've talked about it a number of times before. I don't think he should be viewed that way. I personally have been very consistent saying I was covering Thunder at that point in time. I didn't care that he left the Thunder. I didn't care about how he did it. I didn't give a damn about any of those choices, because he's a human being and he had to think about a legacy that most people just don't understand, and how he was being viewed, having to play alongside Russell Westbrook, and the likelihood that they wouldn't win a ring in Oklahoma City, and how he would have kind of fared had he stayed there and struggled and suffered alongside Russ and not been able to win a title. So I think he made the choice, and it worked out because he got a title, and it was able to buy him at least a little bit of a cushion. It worked against him in terms of the Q rating and the popularity and everything else like that. And I think it's still left such a bad taste in everybody's mouth that people just cannot accept him as anything but that. The fact that he kind of forced his way to Brooklyn, as a free agent, whatever. He chose to go to Brooklyn, then he forced his way out of Brooklyn. And so it's just, people are just kind of tired of everything that he's done at the NBA level, that the positive things he does for Team USA are not going to be enough to kind of mitigate that overall picture and understanding of who he is.
What if they win a title?
Shame.
What if they win a title this year? What if the Suns were to win the title this year? Would that change things?
No, because again, it's like a super team, and I think it would change things more for anybody Tyus Jones, to be honest with you. I think that's it.
But I'll say this: I don't think that anybody thinks of it as a super team anymore, because the failure was so profound. Like, he joined a team with Devin Booker and Chris Paul, and they failed because the goal was to win a title. Failure is tough, but that's like what happens when you put that kind of hype on a team. And then last year, I think everyone was kind of like, "Really, Bradley Beal? Really? That's your third guy?" But even then, they were up there. I think they were second favorites to win the Western Conference, and they get swept in the first round. And so now there's kind of this and everyone's kind of been saying this about Team USA. It's like, oh, Steph and LeBron and KD, and all three of those guys won and combined one playoff game, right? The bar is so low now that if KD, and I think KD's was just incredible last year on an individual basketball level. Like, I have some concerns with the fact of, you have to pair KD with somebody that raises all tides. If you pair him with somebody who makes everyone better, you have one of the greatest teams, or the core, like the structure of an absolutely elite team, right? Like, if you were to pair him with not just another great player, but another great player who lifts everybody up, you would have something truly insane because of where KD's still at. And for him to still be there with those injuries, I think is phenomenal. However, individually, he was still excellent last year. And if they just figure out a way, because to be quite honest with you, I don't think the Dallas Mavericks team was that great, and they made the finals and they were 3 wins away. So it's like, if they win the finals that next year, and Durant's able to say, I did win a title without Steph, KD, or without Steph and the Warriors. I did it on my own. especially I think riding this tide, we will just feel differently about Kevin Durant. I think that regardless of whether, I don't think it will help him in the greatest of all time conversations, David.
Sure.
I don't think it will change
He
our
belongs in.
estimation of him. But we're talking about
in.
likability, and that I think
Yeah.
could change dramatically from how everyone's kind of been like, God, KD's so tiresome over the last couple of years.
I disagree. I just think the title, a championship, isn't viewed the same way in terms of like promoting likability. I don't know when the change took place, but I think you look at even the Celtics team last year, and just like it's enough for the fan base to hang on to, but then you have fans of other teams kind of criticizing the way that they got there, and it's like, oh, it doesn't really count anyway because you beat up on an Eastern Conference team that was half injured or something like that. I just don't think it's enough to change popular opinion. Maybe for those fans on the fringes, but they didn't care how that he left Oklahoma City in the first place. It's only the diehard fans and that perception. It's not going to make any difference. I really don't. I don't think so. If those people that kind of hate him for what he did back in 2016, and as positive as he's been with Team USA, if he wins in Phoenix, it'd be like, well, whatever, who cares? He won in Phoenix because the Western Conference, to your point, Western Conference wasn't good enough to stop him. And who knows how he would be able to, with this Phoenix team, beat whoever emerges from the East next season, whether it's Philadelphia or Boston or anybody else. So I don't know. I just think it doesn't matter as much in terms of promoting likability. He's not going to be seen because he's already won a title too. Like if you're a casual fan, you're like, oh, fine, I'll watch the NBA Finals, and you see 37-year-old Kevin Durant winning a title, you'll be, oh, good for him. I know who he is. But I didn't really care about where. I didn't know he was even playing in Phoenix, to be 100% honest with you. I was like, oh, that's interesting that he's there now. Wasn't he a Thunder player at one point in time? He won with the Warriors. It's like, yeah, I didn't know he was in Phoenix. Like, he's been with a number of teams since then. So it's like it's a little different. It's just, I think he's just carved out his own the way that perception is about him. He's moved on too much. He's seen as just a surly, unlikable kind of guy. And I don't think he's really that all the way either. I think that's just it's perception, and that's fine. That's what we're talking about, though. And I don't think he can do enough to change it.
My last thing is perception can always change. That's how easy it is, and we have a lot of proof of that with players that have done a lot worse things. That'll do it for Locked On NBA. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. Make sure to follow us all week long for coverage Team USA and all things NBA as it rolls along through the off season. We'll see you guys again next time here on Locked On NBA.